Listening to women give dating advice feels like listening to boomers try to explain why young people can't afford to buy houses. Just like how so many boomers seem to think they're knowledgeable about personal finance just because they are personally successful, it seems like a lot of women think they know all the secrets to success in dating just because they've had success in dating. Like, duh, you've had success in your dating life as a woman. That's like saying a magnet had success in sticking to the fridge. Duh. That's how attraction works. That doesn't mean you know what a man would need to do to be successful in dating. Men aren't magnets, okay? A man is more like a piece of paper. If a man wants to stick to the fridge, he's going to need more than just his own existence. He'll need tape or glue or something. It's not just automatic. It's crazy how confident some women will be with the advice they're giving, and then the advice will just be something like, be kind, or just be a good listener. If I'm being a good listener, all that means is I'm going to be paying better attention to exactly how a chick's rejecting me. That's not useful advice. I think a lot of women just default to describing what they wish the guys they've dated would have done better in their opinion. But that's not even close to the type of advice I need. I need advice on how to even get with a woman in the first place. If you're giving advice based on what you think a guy you're already attracted to should be doing, then that advice is useless to 90% of men. I'm not on that step yet. I don't have any women attracted to me. I'm not at that part, okay? It's like when boomers give this out-of-touch advice that you just need to work hard and everything will fall in line. I can't even get a job to work hard at. That advice just is not relevant to me, so it's useless. I made the mistake of watching Kira Lotan's latest video with the volume actually on. I made it about 1 minute into the video. That's all I needed to finish up, but during that minute, I heard probably the stupidest dating advice I could ever even imagine. She said, a man will always struggle with dating if he doesn't learn to accept that whatever happens, happens. Oh, maybe that's been my problem this whole time. I just need to accept that whatever happens, happens. I can't control what a woman thinks about me, so I just need to accept it. Again, this advice is only applicable to a guy that's already with a woman. I'm not at that step yet. Okay, I'm single. I'm chronically lonely and single. It's like these women can't even fathom being in a situation where you aren't already in a relationship, because that's how it is for them. Starting from the age of, maybe like 14, most females are just in a constant string of relationships and situationships until the time they perish. Because just existing as a female is the only dating tactic they need. It's that easy. It's just like how boomers give the most retarded advice on financial matters because they can't even imagine living in a world where everything is super freaking expensive and even jobs that require a master's degree don't pay shit. My dad always tells me I should be able to get pretty much any job in any field just because I have a master's degree. He hasn't updated his model of the world since like 1982. I can't even get an interview for a job in my own field, much less in any other random field. I know a master's degree was a big deal in 1980, but it's 2026 right now. Everybody has a freaking master's degree. They're pretty much just handing them out at this point. Employers are not impressed by it. It's the most basic level of qualification. It really is. But yeah, anytime you hear a woman giving men advice on how to attract women, they always just say something like, be confident, or just wear clothes that fit well. That one really pisses me off. Like, no amount of well-fitting clothing is going to make me not bald. Sure, I could wear a hat, but what am I going to do? Keep wearing the hat while I'm hooking up with a chick? How's that going to work? And what about a guy that's really short? Let's say a man that is 5'3" tall. If a guy like that wants to wear well-fitted clothing, he's going to have to be decked out in Paw Patrol gear or something. I mean, that was a joke, obviously, but seriously, short men are not seen as attractive by the vast majority of women. In fact, I'm pretty sure if a short guy dresses nice and he tries wearing cool clothes, he'll probably get laughed at. They'll just call him a tryhard. If there's one thing I've learned from my years of looksmaxing, it's that people really hate it when an unattractive guy tries to do things that are usually associated with being cool and attractive. It's just offensive for some reason, I guess. But yeah, these women only give advice for guys they're already attracted to. That's why women's advice does not work for sub-5s. It doesn't even work for average guys. They don't even consider our existence when they open their mouths to give advice. We're just invisible to women. Even if a sub-5 man asks a woman directly for advice, like personal advice just for him, she'll still default to giving advice that's already assuming he's got women attracted to him. They literally just cannot conceive of a situation in which somebody is unattractive to virtually all members of the opposite sex. Their brain cannot compute that reality. Even when they're looking right at a sub-5 man, right in front of his face, they'll just assume, yeah, I'm not attracted to him, but surely some ugly girls would be attracted to him. So they just give him the same regular old advice they always give, where they just take it as a given that some amount of women are already attracted to him. So the advice will just be like, you got to try talking to women. Just put yourself out there. They just can't understand the fact that actually, even the ugliest of ugly, fat, stinky, unattractive women are all still just attracted to the same exact guys. I've said it before, but it really is true. Generally speaking, the male population has a much broader range of traits they find attractive in women, while women really are, generally speaking, all just attracted to the same exact guys. So no matter how unattractive a woman is, there are guys out there that not only will they find her attractive, they fetishize the particular traits that make her unattractive to a general audience. But women seem to assume it's that way for men too. But no. If a man is ugly, then he's ugly. The only reasonable dating advice you could give him would be go for blind chicks. Or, try to find a blind woman that also doesn't have any hands. Because if she tries to do that thing where she sees your face with her hands, then it's over. So, yeah. This woman right here has been popping up on my recommended videos lately, and, it's just like Kira Lotan all over again. Some overconfident woman that, for some reason, thinks she knows what it's like out here for us, as if she's qualified to give advice to men. But as soon as she starts talking, it's just abundantly clear her life experience does not even allow her to conceive of the average male reality. And in a way, this lady's actually worse than Kira Lotan because this lady starts all her videos talking about how she's a practicing therapist and a PhD student in psychology, as if that means jack shit. That's another feminine trait, by the way. Believing that a degree from any of these public indoctrination facilities these days actually gives a person authority to speak on things that aren't even in the purview of their field. Especially talking about psychology, which should be called psychonomy, by the way. The ology suffix implies that we're talking about a science. But psychology is a pseudoscience at best. It's literally about as valuable as astrology. Especially modern psychology, getting a PhD in psychology does not give you authority to speak on literally anything at all. If anything, I would call it an anti-qualification. So I watched this out-of-touch woman's video about the men who are most likely to remain single based on research, and it was just as stupid as I thought it would be. The first point she makes is that studies show that the men that are more likely to be single are men with small social networks or men that have poor social skills. Like, yeah, duh. Unattractive men tend to have poor social skills and they don't have a lot of friends because they've been rejected their entire lives. In the vast majority of cases, the reason a man has social anxiety and poor social skills is because of his looks. Or it might be because he's on the autism spectrum or something. Or a lot of times, it's a combination of both.
A lot of this can be linked to shyness, social anxiety, or limited opportunities in meeting partners for the fear of rejection and not wanting to initiate. I think this is interesting because I very much strongly agree with this one, but I think that's a good thing. That means it has nothing to do with him being, it probably does, but not as much, him being unattractive or him being not as financially competent. This is one of the most biggest reasons. The fact that he's just not putting himself out there. I think that's great because it's very fixable.
See, this is the problem I have with psychology and therapy. You can't just fix autism or social anxiety. It's not very fixable. This is the therapist's mind in action right here. She thinks because she has qualifications on paper, that gives her the authority to speak on these things that she has no personal experience with. Just pure, unchecked confidence. It's ridiculous. Lady, miss, excuse me, but you don't know the first thing about a man's struggles. Not the first thing. This is not something you can speak on. And here's how I know she has no business speaking on these matters. Okay, let's play that back again.
This is one of the most biggest reasons. The fact that he's just not putting himself out there.
There we go. The classic, you just gotta put yourself out there, bro. Whatever. The next thing in the video she talks about is men with a low socioeconomic status, or in other words, dudes that are broke. Yeah, amazing revelation there. So glad we have these scientific studies to provide us with these valuable insights that every man in existence already knows just by virtue of going outside. So you're telling me that low-status men with no money struggle to find success with women? Wow, I never would have figured that one out. Thank God for science. Okay, then she talks about men that have unrealistic standards, negative beliefs, blah, blah, blah.
The next one is men that have rigid standards or negative beliefs about relationships. Usually it's like unrealistic expectations of partners, but more often than not, part of that is also mixed with this kind of cynical or hostile view.
Shut up. Just shut up. A man's level of cynicism and his attitudes toward women has absolutely nothing to do with how attractive he is to women. There is no correlation. I'm guessing this is coming from some survey study where they asked men about their relationship status, and then they asked them about their views on relationships and women, and then they worked backwards to conclude that, oh, see, it looks like men that have negative beliefs are more likely to be single. Like, no shit. Duh. But why would you think that it's those negative attitudes that are causing those men to be single? It's obviously the other way around. The rejection leads to the cynicism. This is the problem with these academic-minded girl bosses. Surveys are not science. I know I've said this in a lot of my videos, but it just can't be repeated enough. Surveys are not science. They are just not very useful at all. I get that when it comes to studying human behavior, it is hard sometimes to try to figure out what's going on in someone's head. So you might think, well, we'll just ask people what they're thinking. But that's not science. That's not an actual observation. Any psychological study that uses survey responses instead of actual observations of human behavior, that's useless, okay? It's just useless. You have to observe what people actually do. You can't just go off what they say. And you can't try to assume some causal link between things just because there's a correlation. That's a very basic thing too. Like even the average Redditor is always saying, correlation does not equal causation or whatever. Like everybody knows that. Yet that's exactly what she's doing here. I'm pretty sure. You know, here's the thing. She linked like 10 different sources in the description of this video, but there's no indication of which source goes with what particular thing she said at any part of the video. I'm not clicking on all these links and reading through all these studies. Like, if you want to provide sources in your videos and you want people to think that your information or your opinions or whatever is all well sourced, then you have to put it in line or like put a timestamp or something. The way she did this is ridiculous. By the way, she's not actually giving advice through most of the video. She's just going over reasons why certain men are more likely to be chronically single. But anytime she does throw out her own opinions on things, it's always just completely out of touch. Like she really just has no idea whatsoever what she's talking about. Like at some point she was talking about how men that are still single in their 40s and 50s are more likely to stay single. Which again, duh. We don't need science to tell us that water is wet. It's just like how I could safely assume if this woman here makes it all the way to her 40s or 50s without ever saying anything that isn't completely fucking retarded, then she's probably just a retard. Do we need science for that? I think it's just obvious. But yeah, she's talking about how older men are more likely to remain single, and just listen to what she said.
A lot of men believe that chasing career is beneficial to relationships. I think it is, but there's one drawback. If you're chasing your career well into your 40s and you've never had a relationship because you've been so busy on your career, sometimes you don't pick up the social skills needed for a relationship. And that's another reason why a lot of men in his 40s or 50s, particularly late 40s, if they have been single for their whole life, it's really hard for them to get into a relationship.
Again, she just can't even comprehend the existence of unattractive men. That's how invisible we are. What are you talking about with this hypothetical career-driven man that's just so focused on his career, he's never had the time to learn how to be in a relationship? That is not a real thing. If a man is attractive, then he can work 100 hours a week and still have plenty of success with women. And if he's not attractive, then none of that matters. And social skills is never the issue, by the way. Poor social skills is a result of repeated rejection. It is not the cause. Okay, let me say that again in case this woman is watching. I really want her to understand this. Poor social skills is not the cause of rejection. Poor social skills is the result of rejection. You got it backwards, lady. Obviously, all things equal, a guy with poor social skills is going to be less successful than if he were super charismatic. But also, people's perception of how charismatic and charming you are is largely just based on how physically attractive you are. You know the old Hello Human Resources meme? The one where the attractive guy is perceived as charming, while the unattractive guy that said the exact same thing is seen as creepy? Yeah, that's a real thing. It's called the halo effect. You should know this if you're a PhD student in psychology. I mean, I'm sure she does know about the halo effect, but she seems to be ignoring it in this case. Now, as I'm sure you could probably guess, near the end of the video, she, of course, suggests that men should go to therapy, as if talking to an underqualified, uneducated, out-of-touch woman for an hour each week is just what lonely men need to do in order to learn how to get a girlfriend. Unless the therapist is gonna let me clap them cheeks, I don't see how that's gonna help me out any. It's not gonna help improve my confidence just having somebody sit across the desk from me pretending to care while I talk about my childhood trauma or whatever the hell therapy is these days. I mean, I don't really know what it is and I don't care, but this lady's a therapist and she obviously puts her trust in frickin' survey responses. So if that's any indication of what therapy is like, then no thank you. I already know that ain't gonna help. And again, I bring it back to the comparison with boomers thinking they understand personal finance just because they personally have money. It's just so damn out of touch to not even have the awareness to realize that you were born into a position of extreme privilege. Boomers paid for their entire college education with money they earned bagging groceries over the summer breaks. And that's not even an exaggeration. It literally was like that. Jobs paid better, like much better if you adjust for inflation. Cost of living was lower. College tuition was way lower. Home prices were insanely lower. How out of touch and lacking in self-awareness do you have to be to think that you made it out the mud when you bought a house in 1987 for $50,000 when that same house now is worth like $250,000? That's $100,000 more than the inflation-adjusted value of 50 grand in 1987, by the way. And that's not even near as lucky as lots of these boomers had it. I just use that as an example because that is roughly what my parents paid for their first home back in the day compared to its current value, according to Zillow in 2026. But lots of boomers were able to buy homes for like $30,000 to $50,000 back in the 70s or 80s. And those same houses now go for like $500,000 or more in some cases. But boomers still want to try to talk to us about hard work and financial savvy and the art of saving money and all that. Like, just shut up. You don't have any clue what this world is like now. A college degree does not just guarantee you a job. You cannot afford to buy a house anymore on $15 an hour. They just aren't living in the same reality. But yeah, women giving advice to men is the exact same thing. If you were born into a situation where all the cards are stacked in your favor, you shouldn't take your own personal success as a sign that you did anything special. A woman with romantic success is not an outlier. That does not take any special talent. It's just the default. What is rare is a woman that doesn't get everything her heart desires when it comes to relationships. What a fucking fantastic lack of self-awareness it must take to not be able to realize your own fortunate position in life. Maybe it's just human nature for everybody to always see themselves as the protagonist on some kind of hero's journey. I don't know. I feel like I would always be able to recognize my own privilege and luck well enough to know what I am and am not qualified to speak on when it comes to giving advice, but who knows? I mean, the thing is, with old people and with women trying to advise men, it's like they just assume that everything that works for them or what has worked for them in the past, they just assume that that's universal. Like, women will just give straight up horrible advice, such as, just dress nice, because for them, the way they dress actually might increase the rate they get approached on a night out from, I don't know, it might go from 10 guys approaching them when they dress down versus 100 guys approaching them when they dress like a club flus, when they dress nice. But that's meaningless for a man because nobody's approaching us anyways. If dressing nice increased my odds of success by 300%, I would still have zero success. 0 times 300 is 0. Or whatever the math is there. I don't care. You get what I'm saying. The whole system is different for us. Okay, we're not living under the same system. So women's advice for men makes no sense. And it's just like how boomers assume that their advice of just work hard and save money, they assume that is universally applicable advice because, yeah, of course that made sense back in the day when the cost of living was low and jobs were plentiful. That's not how it is now, though. Working hard doesn't guarantee shit. And saving money, I mean, yeah, it's a good idea to save money if you can, but that's only if you can. That's not actionable advice for a young person these days that can't find a job paying more than $18 an hour. The system is different for us. Okay, boomers? Okay, ladies? The system is different for us. We don't have the advantages you have. We weren't born into the freaking golden age. You know, I'm sorry you can't see that, but I wish I could just take a shower and wear well-fitted clothing and just put myself out there and get approached by dozens of women as a result. That's not the reality I live in, though. I wish I could just take my college degree and apply to a few places in my hometown and get hired on somewhere that'll pay me a living wage for the rest of my life and, they'll stay loyal to me as I stay loyal to them. But that's not the reality of this economy. I can't get a damn job, and I can't get a single woman in the world to give me the time of day. I don't have the advantages that let me just coast through life. I just don't, okay? I wasn't born with those advantages. Yeah, I have it better than a lot of people. At the end of the day, at least I don't have to live in a war-torn third world country. Well, at least not yet, I guess I should say. But damn it, I wish everybody wasn't so out of touch. One more thing I wanted to say. I meant to say this earlier, but a big thing that boomers and young women have in common is that neither of them have ever had to experience scarcity. Boomers never experienced financial scarcity, and broads never experienced scarcity with dating options. They naturally have an abundance mindset because they live with an abundance of options. Boomers always had the options of, they could choose to go to college or they could choose to just get a factory job straight out of high school. They had a lot of different lifestyle choices as far as where to live and things like that because cost of living was just really low in general and jobs paid better back then, so there was less risk on any trade-offs between different options. And that's kind of like how women have so many options for different guys that all want to bang them. Or, really, they have many options for different guys that want to commit their entire lives to them and provide for them every step of the way. They never have to feel the pressure that goes along with scarcity. They're just naturally, automatically confident and self-assured because all of these things come easy for them. They live in abundance. So, yeah, just wanted to mention that. If you found anything I said here thought-provoking, or if it made you feel any type of way, please check out some of my other videos. I have a lot of videos talking about male loneliness, the messed up state of this modern society, as well as my own personal struggles as I try to navigate this hellscape. So check it out, and please subscribe if you just want to help me out. And thank you for watching. See you next time.